نستغفر الله العظيم الكريم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ونتوب إليه سبحانه. نستغفر الله العظيم الكريم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ونتوب إليه سبحانه. نستغفر الله العظيم الكريم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ونتوب إليه سبحانه. نعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. آمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to this week's Saturday discussion. We have been studying the 10th word, which is about resurrection. And we were studying in particular this verse from chapter Rum. Look then at the signs of God's mercy, how he gives life to the earth after its death. This same God is the one who will return people to life after death. He has power over all things. And while studying resurrection and the hereafter, we were trying to understand what does it mean and how come it's important for us. Life after death, or the continuation of our existence after death. Why this is important for us, and we were trying to understand and find the signs of resurrection and the existence of the hereafter in our lives. And within that purpose, we started studying the 10th word. And in the 10th word, we were presented with a parabolic story in which two people, two human beings, entered a country, and it was described as a paradise-like country because there was a perfectly working order. There was such beauty and abundance within that country, and all the residents, all the inhabitants seemed to be working purposefully on their given duties. And within these circumstances, one of the travelers concluded within himself that he could do anything he wants, and he stated that he doesn't understand how come there is an owner of this country, and the other friend was helping him out in trying to observe and read his environment and try to understand his circumstances. And within that dialogue, he was pointing out to some aspects of the country they found themselves in. And that country was the country symbolized the world, the universe we are living in, and the aspects about this country was each aspect is talking about a different side of this universe. The Quranic verse that we are studying said, "Look at the signs of mercy in the universe." And within each aspect, we were really studying different signs of mercy. And this week we are about to study the seventh aspect. And before we start studying this one, is there anyone who would like to share anything about what we have been studying so far, about resurrection and hereafter? Whenever you want to speak, as you know, you can always raise your hand or put your comment in the chat box. Then inshallah we can start reading. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Seventh aspect. Come, let us walk a little and see what is to be found among these civilized people. See, in every place, at every corner, photographers are sitting and taking pictures. Look, everywhere there are scribes sitting and writing things down. Everything is being recorded. They are registering the least significant of deeds, the most commonplace of events. Now look up at the tall mountain. There you see a supreme photographer installed, devoted to the service of the king. And the footnote says, some of the truths indicated in this parable have been set forth in the seventh truth. However, let's point out here that the figure of the supreme photographer devoted to the service of the king is an indication of the preserved tablet. The reality and existence of the preserved tablet has been proved in the 26th word as follows. A little portfolio suggests the existence of a great ledger. A little document points to the existence of a great register, and little drops point to the existence of a great water tank. So too the retentive faculties of man, the fruits of trees, the seeds and kernels of fruit, being each like a little portfolio, a preserved tablet in miniature, or a drop proceeding from the pen that inscribes the great preserved tablet. They point to, indicate, and prove the existence of a supreme retentive faculty, a great register, an exalted preserved tablet. Indeed, they demonstrate this visibly to the perceptive intellect. And inshallah, we will come back to that. And continuing this paragraph, now look up at the tall mountain. There you see a supreme photographer installed, devoted to the service of the king. He is taking pictures of all that happens in the area. The king must then have issued this order. Record all the transactions made and deeds performed in the kingdom. In other words, that exalted personage is having all events registered and photographically recorded. The precise record he is keeping must, without doubt, be for the sake of one day calling his subjects to account. Well, the seventh aspect is talking about a different aspect of this country that we find ourselves in. We are talking about everything being recorded. Within the story, there are photographers and scribes everywhere taking pictures and recording everything and writing everything down. And everything is being recorded. And since this story is a symbolic story signifying the universe that we are living in, the country within the story stands for our world. And um, thinking about the fact that everything is being recorded, the examples that the author gives us are seeds of plants, memory of human beings. And is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts about what we have been reading so far? When I think about how come everything is recorded in my life, actually memory is one of the things I can think of as well. And if there is anyone who has studied psychology or memory in particular, they can tell us perhaps, but I will try to summarize it shortly. That memory is such a sophisticated, um, sophisticated mechanism that really records everything. And nothing that we see or encounter or experience in our lives really disappears or goes into nothingness. But everything really leaves a trace, and the marks and the traces of everything is present within the physical world. Within our body, there are traces and marks of what we have been through, even 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 spiritual experiences. And sometimes, while conducting some experiments on human brain, people find that some people, when they can tap into a certain part of their memory, can speak a foreign language that they have been exposed to, but they haven't studied before. And it really shows that nothing that we encounter or we experience or witness um, disappears from existence, and they are recorded within our own memory. And yet another example of this recording everything down the author gives us was about seeds. And again, if I think anyone who has been to high school and who has taken high school level biology must have studied that every single detail about a plant or a tree is recorded, it is inscribed within the seed of that plant. And every single information about it is recorded. So I'm sure there must be many other examples within the universe we are living. We know that no voice, no sound really disappears, but they still exist within the universe. And sometimes they can be retrieved through using different methods and different sort of technology. But there is ample evidence around us within our lives that nothing really disappears and everything is being recorded. And within the story that we were reading, in this country, the photographers and scribes are recording everything under the order of the king. We read here that the king must then have issued this order: record all the transactions made and deeds performed in the kingdom. And is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts? Oh, Farah, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank
Alaikum
you, Hanep,
assalam.
for the
Thank you.
introduction. One aspect that is coming to my mind that I want to connect or find a way to connect to the main topic of resurrection is this. It's interesting to have read the first few lines and also sort of relate to our own experiences where we see actually people being also very obsessed with taking pictures and recording things, at all times. And so you have that element in which, you observe humanity sort of wanting to record things that they seem to enjoy in whatever sense of the word. And then on the other hand, you have another type of recording in which, let's say, there are security cameras or government surveillance, in which something that perhaps you don't want to be recorded is being recorded. And so the point that I was trying to understand from our reading today is that from human nature side of things, from our own sort of like as much as as honest as we can be with ourselves, do we see in and of ourselves a need for things to be recorded? And recording means that they exist in more than one form, or that they don't perish. I guess that's another way of looking at it, that when things are recorded, that points towards the fact that it is not going into non-existence, but rather it has another type of existence. Um, so, uh, one aspect was, if I think about now, listening to my own self talk, if recording is this act of things continuing in existence, then yes, I think we like and want there to be a recording of things. And we want that to be in the order of the universe, to see it manifest in the way that you're talking about memory and seeds, and there's evidence for that. Um, and yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. Um, I
Oh,
was trying to say a question, and I think I just sort of like gave myself a few hints to think about it.
oh, thank you, Farah. And Brother Asim, I guess, also raised his hand, but now, okay, it's down now. So I thought about what you said as well, and um, I asked myself this question: do I really want everything that I do, everything that is related to me, to be recorded? Do I really need that, or do I really want that? And um, I thought of two different experiences that I had in school, and one of them was in one of the courses that I was taking. There was a structure and there was a purpose, and the instructor really made sure that everything went in alignment with the purpose, and everything was again in alignment with the structure. And he recorded um, the improvements of each student. He recorded everything about them, their quiz results, exam results, which sounds like something that he should do anyways. But I had a different experience too, where the instructor didn't really pay much attention to a structure or to a purpose. And this one really failed to keep up and record down all the info about students, like their assignments and the marks that they get from these assignments, etc. And in the end, um, this the instructor that didn't pay attention was not able to give back a fair mark, a fair grade to the students. And so many things that we have done, we felt like they were in vain. We felt like we studied this hard and we struggled this much for apparently nothing, because nobody paid attention to that and nobody really took the trouble to assess them in a just way, in a fair way. So sometimes, thinking about the school example, it feels like recording down the important things, the milestones or the test results of students. It's something like an instructor should definitely do. That is part of his duty. But I think taking it for granted when an example of the opposite nature takes place, it really makes a difference and highlights the side in me that really wants a just, a fair treatment. And I guess for a fair treatment, the orderer, the king in this story, really must have the correct information about everything, or else it would be impossible to really assess anything, I guess. Is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts about it? Or Farah, I don't know if this is related to your question. Okay, H. Beza, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the introduction so far and all the comments. I guess, wanting to give other people time to think and reflect as well, I want to share a few thoughts. One being that it seems to me that perhaps the main purpose of all of this recording and photography, or taking photographs of everything and managing and keeping records of everything, is essentially, like, also in practical life, it looks to, I think perhaps the first and foremost purpose is like a court of justice, somewhere in which this evidence can look to something. Because in real life, that's, at least when I know that I've done everything that I can, or in a case where I'm innocent, I would want all the evidence to be laid out in front of me. But if I know that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or if I'm guilty, then I would want to hide that evidence. But in any case, the act of recording something is, in a sense, evidence for something that is to come, in a way. So there seems to be this time dimension to it. Perhaps not in the center or under the spotlight, but another aspect of everything being recorded that relates to my life now is, as Farah alluded to in her comment, this obsession or this act of people constantly taking photographs, and not necessarily like for a specific purpose, like a job or something like that, just taking photographs. And in that taking a photograph is the desire to try to eternalize that particular moment. So because my spirit longs for eternal life, for unending life, by snapping a photo of something that I like or that resonates with me, or maybe someone I like, then it is as if I'm trying to hang on to that moment and not let it go so it doesn't become annihilated. Because even my memory is not too reliable. I mean, it is amazing, but over time, I know that I forget things, but I'm in need of something that is able to capture all of these moments that I experience. So essentially, it was these 2 points that kind of attracted my attention, and how I guess, going back to the beginning, the first question that I was asking myself is, and the author does draw a couple of examples here, was first and foremost, how do I know for sure that everything is being recorded, because he does make an emphasis here with saying even the least significant deeds, and what else does he say? That everything in the most common of events, like everything is being recorded. There's not a single thing that goes unnoticed, if you will. And then the author later says the precise record he is keeping must without doubt be for the sake of one day calling his subjects to account. So again, this relationship between things being recorded and the necessity that I will be, or whatever is being recorded will be called to account because it is being recorded. So those are just some thoughts and questions that were kind of in the back of my mind as I was listening. Thank you.
Thank you. That was both very helpful, and thank you for the questions too. I need to think a little bit more about the questions, and in the meanwhile, Farah, please go ahead.
Yes. So as H. Beza was speaking, something just quickly came to mind that I wanted to understand by expressing. So when she said that even the most insignificant details are being recorded or being, I was trying to think about the word also witness. That, for example, I'm currently alone in a room, and if I pick up the pen, I think to myself, this movement is, for whatever reason, being is important in the fact that it is being witnessed. That I'm not the only one who knows that this is happening, but something else. The fact that if I believe that yes, something about this movement is being recorded, or it has another type of existence, or it is in the knowledge of someone else, then it does not make it insignificant in that moment. And so the other point that I think in this discussion generally that I was trying to reflect on was, how does this topic of resurrection prove in and of itself the existence of a source of being, or the creator, and how does the existence of a creator prove resurrection? And one, I guess, attempt, or this early attempt to connect this point is also the fact that even if you are alone and you do something insignificant, as let's say pick up a pen, the idea that this is in the knowledge or being witnessed by someone else who has the power or the position to know everything, and this is something I need to streamline a little bit, makes one aware of being in the presence of that being who is able to, let's say, preserve that moment eternally. So the act of recording, or the act of being witnessed by some other being capable of witnessing every little insignificant detail from before beginning and after the end, sort of like this infinite eternal time space, makes one aware of the presence of that being. And so in this is, I'm trying to attempt to connect this concept for myself about how this act of recording should point towards a source of being, and how a source of being or existence should point towards the act of every detail, what we even call insignificant, being witnessed. I hope some of this might have been communicated, but inshallah, I think with the comments of others, it might be.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think about this question, the first thing that came to my mind that was within the act of recording, there are some different components. Like there is wisdom in there, there is power, and there's willpower, if I may say so. And all this wisdom and the other elements that go into the act of recording, it I think it does point out to the qualities of the one who is recording. And the other your other question was, how come the existence of a source of existence prove or necessitate the existence of the hereafter? And I think to be able to find out about that, we need to get to know this source of existence. We need to get to know the source of existence with his qualities. Is he merciful, or is he powerful? Is he wise? We need to get to know him. And I think please join the discussion if you would like to add anything, everyone. I think getting to know the source of existence is the only way to be able to tell whether he would create the hereafter, or whether he will give life after death. And about Hatice Beyza's question that she asked earlier, there were this was a twofold question, I guess. And first of all, she asked, how can we make sure that this recording, this everything being recorded is really true? How can we make sure that everything is really being recorded? And again, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I do encounter how come everything is being recorded in the physical world. It is kind of exposed, or it is discovered that no experience, or no sound, or no vision, or anything, no sight, nothing goes to waste. Everything remains somewhere. I think because now it is discovered that in the physical world, everything is really being recorded. That was a satisfying answer for me. But if there is anyone who would like to share their thoughts about it, please go ahead on how can we make sure that everything is really being recorded. And the second question that H. Beza had was about, oh, I'm sorry. From my notes, I only wrote down intelligence, but I forgot about the rest. So if you'd like to remind, can you remind me, H. Beza?
Assalamualaikum. If I remember correctly myself, the main question that I had to ask was that, like, how can I how can I know that even the most minute of things, the most common of things, is being recorded? I can't remember if there was another question, but it might come up again. So
okay.
Inshallah, that's all for now.
Thank you. So Is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts about how come everything is really being recorded? How can we make sure that everything is being recorded? And while I guess everyone is thinking, let me read a chat from the chat box. And when I think seed, it reminds me that the life of tree is recorded already. But when we talk about supreme photographer, it means it's still in process. How did seed become example for process, as if vice versa? Well, yeah, thank you. That's a good point. And I guess the example of seed is somewhat similar to the chicken or egg example. Does chicken go? Is chicken produced by the egg, or is the egg produced by the chicken? So the example of the seed, I think, still still matches this topic, because thinking about the fruit of a tree, the there are signs and marks and traces of the entire life of that tree within its fruit, and within its seed there is even more info inscribed within that seed about the life of that tree. So I guess when we think about the tree first, and then the creation of the fruit hanging from that tree, and how come the seed is produced, that particular seed also bears recordings about the tree. But again, please go ahead and participate in this discussion if you'd like to share anything. And Colin Turner raises his hand. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
I was just thinking when you mentioned the fruit, inside the seed of a fruit, you see that the whole life story of the fruit is recorded, you know, just as those parts of our life that have passed are recorded in our memories. So there is a parallel there. And as time passes, this principle of recording and memorizing becomes more and more apparent. And I'm talking about sort of historical time here. And give you an example. When we got our first computer, which was maybe 30, 35 years ago, the hard drive of our very first home computer had 32 megabytes of storage space or memory. And we thought it was amazing. You know, 32 megabytes is absolutely nothing. You know, today we talk in terabytes. And similarly, 100 years ago, photography was in its infancy, and you could take pictures of the past only with great difficulty. And today, you know, 100 years on, a simple cell phone can store thousands of photographs. And this desire to record everything seems to be almost universal. So the act of recording and the act of memorizing is something which seems to be universal and ubiquitous. It's always existed. But with time, the sheer scale of our ability to record and to remember has become astronomical. And I think that this shows that, you know, the one who creates memory can record and preserve everything in detail and is able to play it back to us just as we play back in our minds the things that we've stored there in our memories. And from this, we can extrapolate and understand that a day will come when every word that we've ever said, every movement that we've ever made, and every act that we've ever performed will be presented to us, you know, frame by frame, like a film, detail by detail, because everything is being recorded and has been recorded. And we know this from the very act of recording and memorizing, which we have seen develop in our lifetime, you know, exponentially. And one day we will be made to sit through it and see it all again and to account for everything that we've said, everything that we've done. So, you know, there can be no doubt that this preserving and replaying is possible. And because of this, we need to ensure that our recorded lives will not testify against us, adversely on the day when we are made to relive them. So basically, there is a truth, the truth of recording and remembering, and that seems to be hardwired in creation. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. That was really helpful. And something that I found really interesting in your comment was the part that is, I think, pointing out to the maker of a human being. Thinking about everything that human beings do to be able to record things, to be able to play things back, and this universal inclination, as you mentioned, to really record everything. Now that is something that we find within us, and that is something that seems to be really universal, as many friends have pointed out so far. And thinking about the one who makes us and who puts this desire or this need within us, he must be the one who's really savvy about recording things. And that was an interesting side to think for me. And Farah writes in the comments, can we also ask H. Beza's question, changing it slightly as, must everything be recorded or continue its existence? Okay. Thank you, Farah. And would you like to add anything to that or share anything about it? This is again about, I think, your first question. Do we really need or do we really want everything to be recorded, right? So is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts about it? Actually, H. Beza's previous explanation about the main idea in this preservation of everything and the recording of everything, I found that a satisfactory answer to the question of why everything should be recorded or must everything be recorded. But if there is anyone who would like to share their thoughts about it, please go ahead and share your thoughts about this question. And I guess in the meanwhile, we can go back to this footnote and read it one more time. Some of the truths indicated in this parable have been set forth in the seventh truth. However, let us point out here that the figure of the supreme photographer devoted to the service of the king is an indication of the preserved tablet. Speaking of a supreme photographer, now we read here that this is an indication of the preserved tablet, which is what we are familiar with as Levh-i Mahfuz. The reality and existence of the preserved tablet has been proved in the 26th word as follows. Oh, I think this part is really related to Farah's question. A little portfolio suggests the existence of a great ledger. A little document points to the existence of a great register. And little drops point to the existence of a great water tank. So too, the retentive faculties of man, the fruits of trees, the seeds and kernels of fruit, being each like a little portfolio, a preserved tablet in miniature, or a drop proceeding from the pen that inscribes the great preserved tablet, they point to, indicate, and prove the existence of a supreme retentive faculty, a great register, an exalted preserved tablet. Indeed, they demonstrate this visibly to the perceptive intellect. And I think related to Farah's question, we need to think about these aspects. Why do we need these great registers or these great ledgers in our lives? Why? What is the purpose of, for example, me being recorded within the state records of my country as a citizen, and my tax info or my education info, etc., etc., my health insurance, etc., they are all recorded. And how come that is helpful, or what is the importance of that? And this particular footnote that we read was really explicit in explaining the purpose and function and importance of the preserved tablet, mentioning it as the supreme photographer devoted to the service of the king, or a supreme retentive faculty, a great register, an exalted preserved tablet. Is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts? Okay. If we find this footnote clear and explicit enough, I think we can move on to the rest of this paragraph. But if not, please raise your hand. So the concluding sentences of this paragraph was, in other words, that exalted personage is having all events registered and photographically recorded. The precise record he is keeping must, without doubt, be for the sake of one day calling his subjects to account. Oh, H. Beza, please go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I just had two thoughts to share insofar as the necessity of being recorded and how that looks to an eternal realm, or a realm of being called to account. So on one hand, as in my earlier comment, I had briefly said that, in terms of justice, I'd like everything to be recorded, as long as I know I'm in the right. And the thing is, I would never want to be in the wrong. I would never want to be guilty anyway. But in my life, doing the right thing or striving, for goodness, whatever, however one may define that, but striving to be a human being, in that endeavor, I would be okay with, and I would not just be okay with, but because of the not full sense of justice that I experience, and so the lack of absolute justice that I experience in this world, my spirit would necessitate that there be some sort of recording happening. And also, if I know that I did something wrong, and the fact that I don't want things to be recorded in that case also looks to the fact that my spirit in its original state of being wants things to be recorded. It's only when I go off of that path and do something that I'm not supposed to do that then I'm just like, oh, I hope that wasn't seen, or something like that. So, but by default, it's already ingrained within me to want things to be recorded, because I have a sense of justice that's been given to me, and I want things to come to light so that justice can be served, if you will. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect, I think, this aspect was more or less mentioned actually, but just to emphasize on it just a little bit, was how within the universe, like the author says, the seeds and the kernels all kind of bear witness to, and within themselves kind of have this record of what has come and what will come. So the typical example of a seed, perhaps the seed of a tree, encapsulates within it its own program, but also all of the history of all the trees before it, as well as all of the trees that will come from it, extending to the future. So in a way, the universe also bears witness to this sort of recording that's being happening. And I'm sure there are many more countless sort of examples that we could probably brainstorm, even just like, memory probably being one of the greatest indicators of such a thing. But the universe itself also tells me that such a thing is actually taking place. And at the same time, my humanity, as long as I'm aligned with it, nobody would say I don't want justice. Everybody already has that sense instilled within them. So, and since within this universe, everything is in a way limited insofar as how I experience and how it is manifested, there needs to be, in order for, just as far as my humanity and my feelings are concerned, I desire a sort of, a court of full justice, a court of where that sense is fulfilled as well.
Thank you, Hatija Beza. That was beautiful and really helpful for me. And you have your hand up again, but I guess okay. And also, perhaps something to remember is we are reading about a particular aspect of this country. And this particular aspect is about everything being recorded and everything being preserved. Some feelings that we may have around this preservation and around this recording might be also related to other sides of our existence, which might be investigated and studied in the upcoming aspects or other aspects. This is just a thought that I had, because thinking about the reasons why perhaps I wouldn't want everything about my life to be recorded. If, like Hatija Beza mentioned, if my life is full of unlawful records, I wouldn't want them to be taken down. But I think this is about a different aspect that I have. However, inshallah, I hope we will find the answers to our questions. And Azima Mariam says in the comments, I understand that memory records things in the past by passing knowledge from the people who have known it and recording it in books. Like if we want to know more about a certain event that occurred, we are able to research it anywhere. Yes, thank you. Would you like to elaborate on that? But it is
So
like, yeah. Go ahead,
sorry.
please.
So like I kind of understood that from the memory we can like remember the events that occurred in the past, like the people who were in it, they might have passed it on to like their different generations, and that's how we are hearing of it today.
Thank you. That's a different take on memory, and yeah, thank you for that. There is a collective memory of all human beings, and also within our own memory, there is our own memory is like a really vast resources library that we can really turn in and try to find whatever we are looking for. And so I guess if there is no other questions, we can move on to the next paragraph. Now, is it at all possible that an all-wise and all-preserving being, who doesn't neglect the most banal things of the lowest of his subjects, should not record the most significant deeds of the greatest among his subjects, should not call them to account, should not reward and punish them? After all, it is those foremost among his subjects that perform deeds offensive to his glory, contrary to his pride, and unacceptable to his compassion. And those deeds remain unpunished in this world. It must be, therefore, that their judgment is postponed to a supreme court. In the previous aspects that we were studying about this particular country, about the universe that we were living in, we came across the order and how come everything is ordered so wisely and so justly in this country, and how come there's a purpose to everything. All the residents and all the inhabitants of this country seem to be working diligently within their duties, and they were performing their duties diligently, and there was a purpose to everything. This was something that could be observed, and now we are reading about one of the purposes, if not the most important purpose of this preservation. And we read that, now is it at all possible that an all-wise and all-preserving being, who does not neglect the most banal doings of the lowest of his subjects, this all-wise and all-preserving being, who keeps the record of everything, who doesn't neglect anything, who doesn't overlook the smallest need of the smallest created being. Now, is it possible that he should not record the most significant deeds of the greatest among his subjects, should not call them to account, should not reward and punish them? We can observe within our lives, and we can observe that the smallest living being is not neglected, and their needs are being met, and their lives are arranged wisely and justly. And seeing that, we can conclude that every single being within this universe would be treated the same. And is it possible that this all-wise and all-preserving being neglect the most significant deeds of the greatest among his subjects? Now, what I understand from this paragraph is that there was a reason why everything was being recorded, and reading from the concluding sentences, after all, it is those foremost among his subjects that perform deeds offensive to his glory, contrary to his pride, and unacceptable to his compassion. And those deeds remain unpunished in this world. So this monarch seems to be answering the needs of relatively insignificant beings within his realm. However, the important and significant deeds of the foremost among his subjects seems to be unpunished, or seems to go without a trial in this world. And the author says in the final sentence, it must be therefore that their judgment is postponed to a supreme court. And I guess we can come to understand what is presented here if we think about this aspect of preservation and recording in its full form, and thinking about the one who is recording everything. Is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts about this? Seeing that every single being is being supervised or is being paid attention to, and everything about their lives is recorded and again is paid attention to, and their needs are answered, and everything related to their lives is taken into consideration. And this is something that we can observe. However, we observe something else, and that is some deeds that we witness in this world, some really offensive, sometimes oppressing deeds, they seem to go without a punishment. And again, thinking about the treatment of the owner of this universe, I do expect within my human side that these more important, more significant, more impactful issues should be addressed as well. And coming across and encountering with the manifestations of the mercy and justice and wisdom of this the owner of this universe, I do expect that he would also address and he would also pay attention to the judgment about the foremost among his subjects that perform really impactful deeds. Is there anyone who would like to share their thoughts about it? And also, we are at time, so if nobody wants to share anything, I guess we can say the closing prayers. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.